everybody, and welcome to Quest, a journey into true crime and paranormal. I'm your host, Misti Gaither, and I have my co-host with me here, Cody McLain, and I am so excited and honored to have Darlene Cusanza here. She is the president and CEO of CrimeStoppers, and she is our guest tonight, and we're going to talk about the major role that CrimeStoppers plays into helping solving crimes in the New Orleans area. So thank you so much, Darlene, for being here.
Thank you.
I know that you're president and CEO of CrimeStoppers, but how long have you actually been involved?
Well, I started out, I was hired as their executive director, and they just changed our titles. But I've been there 28 years. And I had nothing to do ever with any kind of law enforcement before. My father was a first responder. He was in the fire department. But a good friend of mine of where I was working before with the Louisiana CPA Society said, I have a challenge for you. How would you like to try to do this new program? And it started out a wild ride, and it's continued. But I've met a lot of great people through it.
Oh, no doubt about that. So, I mean, actually, it was about, I'm thinking around the early 90s is when that you started.
94,
so,
95.
Right. So, I mean, you have probably seen a difference in different cases and things from that era until now. Probably thousands of cases that's come through.
We deal with absolutely thousands. And you got to realize that when I first joined in 94, 95, that was where the murders in New Orleans was, I think, of about 400 cases a year. It was Richard Pennington coming in, and he really had embraced CrimeStoppers. So we sort of, like my first 2 years, I got thrown right in the middle of all of that. And what I learned, and really the premise about CrimeStoppers, is that they want to allow folks to give information because they're fearful of a lot of things. They're fearful of retaliation in the community. They were fearful at that time of possibly law enforcement not, handling cases properly. So we got to really see the importance of citizens for the first time feeling like they had a voice. And like I said, Richard Pennington had used us from in D.C. where he was before, and it was great. It was wonderful because law enforcement had never received as much information until we started getting involved, and because we also offer rewards. So it's been a win-win for them to be able to be the kind of that added force behind it, because we all know we need more officers, we need more information, we need to be able to solve all these cases.
You're exactly right, and I know it's easy for us looking in and not knowing probably all of the ins and out of how everything goes. Yeah. And we can say, oh, they don't do their job, or they should have did this, and doing like we do after a game with the Saints, oh, he should have thrown. Right.
Absolutely.
And when they should have did this, and it's real easy for us as citizens to be critical. Mm-hmm. And maybe in some cases, and I'm not saying all, but maybe in some cases it's just not that way. It's just the thing that I think that crime, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the thing that CrimeStoppers does is they put an emphasis on involvement, community involvement into the solve, because like you said, they're short-staffed. People aren't comfortable in talking to law enforcement, but they can call you up and maybe say, hey, I have this tip, blah, blah,
that
blah.
Bridge.
Right, and that's so important. And I think that what you do is very important, because I'm sure that there are probably several cases that would not be solved otherwise.
No, absolutely. I know that when we've taken, and did stats, we're at over 18,000, 19,000 felony crimes that we know that tips have solved. And that's since 1981. But for us, it's all the other criminal intelligence that we for the victims. That's what we're really about. We're certainly helping law enforcement, but we're about the people who become victims, right? And we become their voice. For those who have been victims of homicide, it's really, I look at it as an honor to be able to be their voice, because they don't have another voice. Their family, if they have family involved, certainly that's one opportunity. But sometimes through the grieving process, that's a difficult thing to do as a family member. So sometimes it's us standing alone with law enforcement, getting the community engaged. And again, I think that's an honor and a privilege for us to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I like the way that you look at that way, because it is an honor. And like any time that you can be a voice for someone who doesn't have a voice no more, what greater gift can you give that person or their family and to be that, like you said, that bridge, and to provide them a safe place to come and talk, or however that they do it. They can even do it anonymously. To me, that is amazing. And you've been there, you said 28 years. That has been looking for years to do.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's also important to say that, Crime Stoppers bridges the gap between the police force and the public who might not have a lot of trust in the police force, and they don't necessarily want to walk up to a police officer and say, hey, look what I've got. It's a lot easier to talk to a middleman who's going to listen, take what you have to say, and bring it over here. It keeps them, like you said, retaliation. It keeps them safe. They get a reward, and the cops get what they need to solve these cases that need to be solved.
Well, like I mentioned, I was working for the Louisiana CPA Society, which is a statewide organization. And, of course, CPAs are very analytical. I mean, they're, a different side of the brain than I use. Yeah. So I guess I got along well because of that. But going from that to looking at this process, and the first thing I'm like, well, can it really be this easy? Can it really be? And I'm like, man, it's amazing how much we actually do get from people. Like you hear about that in CIs for other agencies. Nothing. But back in the day, we used to actually meet the tipster in a public location and pay out the funds, right? So that doesn't happen anymore. I'm just going to say that's not our system.
I remember
liability
that from school.
insurance.
I'm not going to lie. I really remember that from school, and I remember the multicolored changing pencils. When Crime Stoppers would come to the school.
Oh, yeah?
And it was the easiest thing, 504-822-1111.
Absolutely.
Right? The easiest number in the world.
So when I first started, there was a gentleman who was on our board. He's an attorney, deceased now, but he used to be Mr. Payout, right? And he would put a flower in his lapel, and he would meet these folks under I think it's D.H. Holmes, had the big clock on Canal Street.
Yeah.
And that's where he would do his payouts. And here I am, this little young, girl, and I'm like, wait a minute, sir. Aren't you afraid somebody's going to recognize you, if they, come back at, and no, they never had a problem. It always worked. But I would sit back and go, wow, it's just simple.
So would you do some payouts to yourself? Or
no,
just
I would
the
never,
guy?
only volunteers. It was
Okay.
always volunteer board members. No, I would not handle the cash, and neither would law enforcement show there. But it's crazy, as far as how easy it worked. And then we were finding out the tipsters had changed. The folks coming in wasn't always what we thought. And a lot of them were older folks who's, they have also become victimized, or their children, was murdered. We'd have people calling us with tips that wanted to be able to get their children in a safer place, which may at that point have been juvenile, detention or whatever. So they're giving information. But yeah, when you don't, unless you're in that process, you really don't know, how that whole process is going to affect you. And in some neighborhoods, it was pretty bad.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious, because now they have the DNA, the DNA genealogy, okay, and how that's really changed the surface and everything
Sure.
about solving all, like, a lot of these cold cases and stuff. And do you think that if y'all had the funding, that you could maybe go back to do some DNA on some of these cases?
If they had the DNA, first off, obviously
Sure.
we'd have to gather it. And certainly we need more labs to do that. I know we're always hearing about labs being backed up, whether it's a state or local labs. But private funding in, using a private lab, if it fits into the law enforcement criteria, yeah, I think that could be helpful. We don't only just deal with murder victims. We deal with, regretfully, domestic violence, rape, sexual assaults. And when you look at those cases, that's incredibly important to get that processed immediately. Because you can only imagine what these ladies or even men are living with when you have that fear and you have that evidence.
Right. I can't imagine, like, if you think of yourself, like, on the family waiting for these answers and just, because I watch a lot of true crime and I just kind of resonate with the family and how, like, if I was in their place.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's so sad, and all that they're missing is that one little key or that one little tip to blow the whole thing wide open. And it's like, you know, some of them have waited 50, 60 years without an answer, and then the new DNA comes out, and then they're like, bam,
Get
this
a little
happened
bit of
to you.
closure.
Yeah, 60 years ago, this happened. And I mean, I watch a lot of it, and I'm just like so amazed, and sometimes that the culprit's still alive and has went on with their lives and families and businesses and
Yes.
whatever. And
I
it's
mean,
just
look
like,
at the whole Tupac thing. His killer
Yes.
was just
yes,
found 20-something years
Yes.
later.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And you would never think that you would ever have any kind of answer on the Tupac thing.
No.
And then the Golden State Killer, and you know that's really what was the big thing that kind of brought everything about the genealogy into you know, into the media.
Right.
You know, so I really think, I really think thanks good, because y'all do accept donations, I'm sure, and y'all,
Absolutely.
you know, and maybe that's a something that people, if you're wanting to make donations, can kind of think about to do. You know, to have some of these cases, if they have the DNA, to help get them solved, because it's easy to criticize, but to help and want to be a part of the solution and not the problem, that takes a little bit more effort on your part to do.
Oh, yeah.
Talked about cases and how that, you know, there's been thousands and thousands of cases, and I wanted to ask you 2 questions. And one of them, what case that's been solved has stood out to you maybe more than others?
Well,
That's
most
a
of
lot.
them, there's a lot of them not solved.
Well, that's my second question.
Right. I mean, my first case, which, you know, we'll start with the not solved. My very first case that I came on with CrimeStoppers was a 6-year-old little boy, Kevin Wooden. And I'll never forget that. In his body, he was beaten to death, basically. He was beaten and left to die in a shed, garage-looking thing. I'm not sure. It was, you know, and around Audubon Park area. And they thought it was family members involved and possibly a boyfriend. But anyway, that child, I think he had his spleen, you know, was left to die over several days. And I can remember standing at that location, and brand new, green to this, you know, and I'm with the detectives and everything, and I'm just like, how can somebody not be speaking up? And we actually, at that time, was a very large reward. We did, I want to say it was 20 or 25,000.
Wow.
And multiple sources donated to that reward. And we never could get enough to make that, you know, that arrest. And to this day, I mean, however many, you know, I think that was 19, 20 years, I'm like, if I can walk, when I retire, if that case could ever be solved, it would be, you know, it would be a great thing for me, because it just really touched me being a child. For us, there was a case out in New Orleans East, and I remember the mom really working with us. I want to say her son was a barber, and the name's not coming to me right now, but actually we got a tip that actually helped make an arrest in that. And just looking at, when you look at people like that, I mean, there's been multiple barbers who's been killed for you know, in the area over the years that have been very engaged in the community and very involved in the community, and her son was. And I think just looking at the fact that, you know, there was a lot of people who were hesitant to speak, and finally seeing the grace that she received by saying, okay, I knew we would finally get that information and make that arrest. You know, I'm sorry, I don't have a name, but the family was very, very involved with us afterwards, and that was, you know, it was touching, because grief is something that people don't just get over, and I think that's what we forget. We look at these cases, and they could be 30, 40, 50 years old, whatever, but that never goes away. I mean, it becomes a different part of your life, and you learn how to live with that, and some people don't, you know, learn how to live very well with it, but it's always there.
Right, and I think that's really good how I notice about some mothers who have went through, like, their child being missing or found, you know, deceased or whatever, and then they'll reach out if it happens to another mother, someone else, and try to be there for that person, and to me that is such grace. That is such, you know, because no one can understand that.
Yeah.
Unless,
exactly.
Unfortunately, it's happened to you.
Exactly.
And you know, do you get to go out to some cases? Do you do that regularly, or just kind of like here and there? Or?
I don't go on the night of it when a homicide occurs.
Sure.
I'm not at the crime scene.
Sure.
But do I go visit with families? Do we do press conferences? We used to do a lot of press conferences at the location. And we did that intentionally because we wanted the neighbors to see us. we're not doing that as often. It just seems like that's not something law enforcement's always wanting to do as often. There's some liability there, you know, being standing in the middle of wherever.
Yeah.
But for the family members, it can also be very tough to go back. And one of the cases that, you know, it's still not solved it was a family in Gentilly. And it was the mom and 3 children. There was a surviving daughter. And we did 2 or 3 press conferences at that location because we had an increased reward. And every time a family member that came, it was just brutal for that family member to be standing in front of that home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you feel
No
it.
doubt.
You realize that, you know, you
And
realize what happened there. You feel that in your being.
Sure, and that's what's sad is, you know, that they're there back on the scene, and then when if something happens and they go to trial, and they're constantly having to relive the whole, you know, terrible event over and over. So
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the Fricky family right now.
that's
Oh,
sad.
my God,
I
you know?
can't. I don't understand why it is like it is, and I know that you probably can't say a lot that right, but I can. And so it just really infuriates me how a woman can be dragged until her arm comes off. And you have videos of the perpetrators as they're walking down the street after that they're doing it, teenagers laughing, going on about their business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what more do you need?
Yeah.
That, you know, and when I say you, I don't mean like you personally, but I mean like a general, the DA or whomever. Like, what more needs to happen? What more needs to be said? What more evidence? You know, the parents turned them in. So it just really is sad to know that she begged for her life. And then her family knowing these things and the people who heard her screams and everything. And to know that there's no resolution, 2-3 years later?
Right. I think it's been 2 years. But again, it's that reliving of this for the family. And that's what, whether we're doing a press conference at the location or whatever, that's what they're constantly having to see. And it's just, you know, horrendous.
It's very sad. And honestly, I think about Linda Fricky a lot. Because it just, you know, like I said, I get wrapped up in cases. And you know, it's just so sad. I don't know if you've heard of that case, but it just really just really grinds my soul to know that someone went through that pain. And then justice, what is that saying about justice denied? Something about if it's not done early or quickly or something like that is just, I don't know. But anyway, the way that our legal system, and certainly nothing that we can honestly do, but it's just sad how things can be pushed back and questioned and maneuvered, and it just really riles me up if you can't tell. But so let's move on to another case before I start preaching and stuff. But the shootings on, like, what is it, I-10, 610, whatever that is, about the shootings.
Right.
I mean, I think about that and I'm wondering, okay, do we have a serial killer or
You're talking about the sniper
shooting.
Right. Right. Which, you know, nothing has been said that I'm aware of through law enforcement that we have snipers or something like that.
Of course.
They're either been retaliatory or mistaken identity. But obviously it's a concern because the stray bullets, I mean, when we're talking about any of us driving on the interstate, I mean, we can be that person, that unlucky person. And for us, I mean, we'll get tips. We'll get tips from people who were driving past and may have seen some, but they're not as easy to solve as I would have hoped that they would be. Part of that is camera footage. I mean, you know, depending on where we are, you know, if you're driving through Jefferson Parish, there's a camera everywhere. You know, when you come on any exit, you're in and out of the parish, there's going to be a camera. I think looking at making sure that we have that technology in New Orleans is something that I know that's being worked on, but that's critical. And then, of course, the manpower, being able to drive up and down and patrol the interstates is critical.
Right, and even looking at the tapes, I mean, you have to sit there for hours and hours to go over all those tapes, and that takes up a lot of man hours too. You know, so it's just a mess that, you know, that needs to be solved, and the answers are out there. Like I said, we have cases that's been solved 50, 60, 40, 20 years. People Jane Does. Do we have a lot of Jane Does in our area?
Not that I'm aware of. Most of the victims they have been identified. I mean, it's not a Jane Doe. I think the most recent one that we dealt with, and she was finally identified, was the lady who was a teacher, and she drove from a Harrison Avenue location and drove into the bayou there, Bayou St. John.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a Jane Doe for a short part, but then they had named her. But no, not here that we're seeing. There are a few cases that I know that we've heard and been involved with the LSU Faces Laboratory, which they actually do the reconstruction, which is incredible. Watching
I would
the
love
work
to
that they
go
can
there.
do. Yeah,
I would love to.
incredible.
Woo.
But no, we're not seeing a large quantity of those in our area. Thank God.
Right. Did you ever see on Unsolved Mysteries, and this is kind of not off the subject, but not about here, but did you ever see on Unsolved Mysteries about when Frank Bender did that bust of John Emil List?
No, I don't see that.
Oh my God. You know, John Emil List, he killed his family, whatever, and then he ran off, and the guy did the clay thing. And when I tell you, when they found him like 20-something years later,
Spitting image of the bust.
Even the glasses
Wow.
was a spitting image. I don't know if you've seen
I don't
it.
remember that, but I've seen that, and I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
reconstruction videos and pictures, and it's absolutely incredible how these people just by a skull.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they do it, but I think that they have a different, like a gift or like maybe an intuition or something special to be able to form and to really
Schooling?
Yeah. Well,
I'm joking.
No.
Talent.
We don't talk about schooling and talent. We talk about gifts here. No, I'm serious. But I mean, really, in schooling and talent, all that plays into it. But you have to have that extra something that makes like
It's
Frank
a certain
Bender.
eye. It's a certain eye for this stuff.
I mean, like for him to even get the glasses correct.
Who would know that a cheek dips at a certain area
Yeah.
unless you have the eye for that? Who would know that you have a pointy chin unless you have an eye?
Unless you know all the, if they have the things where they put the erasers and on the skull at certain depths. And I'm going to that LSU Faces. You watch.
She will be invited.
I will. It'll be like live from LSU Faces. So October the 17th. Tell us about that.
So Night Out Against Crime, actually I think issues that you're hearing about.
Yeah.
So for CrimeStoppers, and we've kind of been the endorsement of this program for so many years, and people who are having events can register with us. So we give out T-shirts and different things, safety. We have these really cool fans this year.
What? Oh no.
Well, it's like they kind of pop out of this thing. So I mean, I know a lot of the churches love to have their fans. Well,
Yeah.
these are really cool churches. Just want you to know, I like
What,
the
you'll
fans.
have a whole slew of
I know,
churches
I
now.
love the fans.
Right.
But
I
it's
need
meant
one of those fans.
right. But it's meant to to build our network too, because it should be every night as a night out against crime, right? Not just October 17th. And I think this year we're seeing an increase in the number of parties, so that's exciting. I mean, COVID kind of knocked everything out for a couple of years, but for us, we'll get about 150 party requests.
Wow.
And and the kickoff party for New Orleans is at Millennium Playground or Millennium. So if you want to go to that, I think it starts at 5. There's usually free food, and different things that you can go see, displays for the kids to go see. But it's a good time, and I hope people really do get engaged, and get their groups engaged, because it can change your path for the rest of the year when you get to know and have more information about, how do we keep ourselves safe, what's really going to work in our neighborhood or whatever.
Right. Now, last week I put up a flyer of Miss Margie Eggerson Shorty.
Yeah.
I just think that's so sad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you said you watched the show. I don't know if you heard what I said about the time and how she took that clock with her. And,
Yes, I did.
oh, that just really got me. And so I wanted just to bring up 2 flyers tonight, just to, if anybody knows anything, get in touch with Crime Stoppers. We have the gentleman that we talked about in your office. Let's see. We have that, Brandon.
Joshua Woodruff?
This young man?
Oh, no. Well, this one, yeah, but also, here, the Long Van Win.
Yeah.
We talked about him, how he was just, minding his business, mowing his yard. And someone came and just, hit him with a car. I noticed that we have a lot of hit and runs.
Seems to be on the increase over the past year or so.
Yeah, it really, I don't know if what the deal is, but it is an increase. I really feel that. And so, I mean, it's just sad how that he was just minding his business in the morning, doing his thing,
Right. And there was actually, I want to say it was a truck. There was a vehicle that they sort of identified that they thought was call in with information on that. So, a lot of times for us, when we look at these cases, as time has passed, people get a little bit more comfortable giving information, or the perpetrator could be in jail and they're talking about it in jail. We get tips from the jail. But, again, with this, just showing his face is an honor to his family to let him know that, he's not forgotten for sure.
Right.
And we need those tips.
Right, and it just makes me sad. Like I said, you're owning your own home or being at your home, being able to take care of your yard is such something that you don't think sitting around. Oh, it's an honor for me to do that, but it really is. And then you're just minding your business, taking care of what's yours, and then some asshole comes and hits you, and there you go. And it's just sad. But, somebody out there knows something. And I think that, really there should be, I don't know if it's a law or just like a moral compass for a lot of the auto people who do repair. It really would be a good thing because, like we said, there's been an uptick on, and they got to get rid of the car quick. You can't be driving around with it for days.
That fender has to be repaired
right,
somewhere.
Right, somewhere, exactly.
So, maybe that's something too. This next case is really one that tugs at my heart, and I'm actually going to do a whole show. I'm probably going to be on scene at different things.
Oh, I remember this one.
Right. Joshua
I think
Woodruff.
everybody remembers this one.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's horrible.
Every time that I'm over there around Decatur and Domain, I always think of him, and I've actually kind of stood where he was, and I think about how sad that to have your body dragged 6 miles, 6 miles under a car, over the GNO. Didn't he go over all the way to maybe Gretna, Algiers, or somewhere?
It was over the bridge. It was over GNO, and I think it was at the base of the bridge. But again, I might be wrong on that. But it wasn't too far on the West Bank. But yeah, there are several cameras in that area, and our thing was how did they avoid the camera footage that could have caught the front of that car? But they did.
Yeah.
We had a lot of tips on this, and a lot of tips with cars that they thought was it, but. This family, they were here year after year, begging for help, coming, doing the walks. Just doing everything, but, regretfully, never got that call.
And it's sad because, like y'all, I think there is a composite of of how, because it was 2 witnesses, if I'm not mistaken,
Right, that's
of the
all.
car. Get that extra thing, and I would hate to know that one of my sons was under a car for 6 miles.
Oh, yeah.
That just, and his family seems to be so nice too. And he was in Harvard, and he came down to, I think it was his first time in New Orleans.
Very educated.
When I pull these flyers up, and when I'm looking on the website, y'all's website, I invest myself. I look and I, all of them mean something, and there's some that maybe kind of catch my attention a little bit more, and it just really just strikes me as sad. And like I said, I'm gonna do a whole show where I'm out at different points and filming, and bring it in here and do it all together. But I'm really praying that all find resolution. But I'm really praying that the Woodruff family, because that is just beyond asking someone of what they can take. God, they always say God doesn't put anything on you that you can't handle.
Take, right.
And I'm just like,
What than what it could have been. This was an accident. All they had to say was, "Oh my God, I didn't see. I stopped, but it was New Year's Eve. They were likely drinking." And again, I'm just surmising. I know nothing, absolutely nothing. Right. But they were likely drinking, panicked,
sure,
kept going, and they took somebody's life. They could have stopped, and he could be alive right now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's for me. It's like you said. That's all hit and runs.
Yeah.
Because we're going to assume that everybody was innocent, and it was an innocent thing that they did. But yeah, if you stop and you own up to it, it's so much less legally even for you to be able to do that. But to live with that on my conscience, no. I couldn't
At that
do that.
point, it was an accident, and legally speaking, your ramifications were much less than from 2016 to 2023, you're kind of screwed right now. You
as
know what
should be
happened.
now.
You
Yeah.
know what happened. You've seen the front of your car when you woke up.
7 years. But like I said, I believe justice is coming. And I don't know. Maybe there was a recent hit and run. The you know one Yoko from the Always Lounge hit by the scooter.
Yes, Yoko.
Oh yeah,
Yoko
on Franklin Avenue.
Yeah.
And there was an arrest.
There was an arrest. That's what I'm saying. And that when that happened, it just kind of triggered me back to there's so many hit and runs and
in this city.
In this city, it's just terrible. All right, so thank you so much, Brandon, for putting those up. And if anybody knows anything, call Crime Stoppers or go onto their website. Also, I was going to ask you, what is the criteria to get a case to be featured on Stoppers?
It has to be a violent felony crime.
Okay.
That's it. And I'm glad you're asking that because most family members, they're very upset. How come you didn't cover my loved one's case? We don't know about every case. You need to call us. You need to get law enforcement to call us.
Okay.
There's rewards on all of these cases. I mean, most of them would be $2,500. If it's a double homicide, it's $5,000, and that's our money we post up. But there's not one case that we would not help with. There's not one case that's too old. We don't have cold cases. I mean, we tell people it's a cold case, but we're going to always be there with it. And for us, I mean, it's all agencies. So we cover 9 parishes. So it's not just the New Orleans area. I mean, depending on if it's Forest, you go out to St. James Parish would be our last parish. But there's another CrimeStopper. So if it's in a parish that they do by the Baton Rouge area, there's going to be somebody that's going to work with you. So use it. It's free. And that's, we're here for you. I mean, that's the whole intent.
So let me ask you something. Now, I did notice, and they may be on Crime Stoppers before, but I'm not sure. In 2017, it started in about June of 2016, there were 3 transgender women. Chana Dahl, Dupree Gibson. I don't know if she has been on Crime Stoppers before or not. I don't know.
I think her case was. Now, if her flyer's not still up there from 2017, because it's, things get archived.
Sure.
But I believe we did have her case. But, I mean, they just need to call.
Now, would it be the family that would need to call you, or would it be somebody like me need to call you, or who would need to call you?
Typically, it's the family. The family,
okay.
The legality, or law enforcement.
Okay.
So if you're working with a detective, have the detective call us.
Okay. Because, I just noticed, like, within a few days of each other, like, there were 2 murders of 2 in 2017. And this Goddess Diamond was in June of 2016, found in a burned car. And that was, I didn't get the location. I think in New Orleans East, but was, found burnt. And I think that's so sad. And, and then we had the 2 that were shot in 2017 in February. Matter of fact, both of them in February 2017. And so I was just wondering, like, if the family, if they don't want to call, but maybe I didn't know what the steps were. I didn't want to overstep anything.
Right,
but
sure.
I just realized that I noticed there wasn't a current flyer,
absolutely.
and I didn't know what the steps were.
They just someone needs to call us that is related to the
Sure.
victim,
Okay.
or again law
The
enforcement,
detective.
and we'll put a flyer up for them. We're always looking for people to help share those. I mean, so we're asking people to take and put them on Facebook, share them to their
Sure.
Facebook,
Yeah.
put flyers out where the location is. A year ago, we actually put out CrimeStopper murder. Can you solve this murder at all of the murder locations across the city in January? I think that was for Victims Week. And there, even with that, which was over 100, I want to say there were 150 or more posters we put out.
Sure.
There were still some that we didn't know about.
Well, yeah,
You know,
I mean,
so
it's a lot
like,
to
you gotta
do.
call
Right,
us, yeah.
Right, and I'm not saying anything against your. Like, I was just wondering,
Sure.
like, what needs to be done because you can't go and do every single one. Now, I don't know if you ever been to St. Anna's Church on.
Yep.
Okay. And
Father Terry.
Right, Father Terry, of course.
Yep.
And unfortunately, he had to resign. In July?
I didn't know you
Yes.
were
Like with
really?
their church, with their church, like if they get to be, I can't remember, 65 or 67, it's autumn. Like
Wow,
they have to do.
That's young.
Yep.
Yeah. It's seeming younger now.
It definitely seeming younger, yeah.
But you know how they would take and put all
Yep.
the murder victims, and I didn't know if you had been there and seen. I mean, to
Yep.
me, that was just such a, it's just amazing how many people that we lose needlessly, and then how many cases that we have unsolved needlessly.
Well, let me put a plug out there.
Sure.
I mean, one of the things that we used to do a lot of before Katrina, and then of course before COVID, but the inventory was more available to us before Katrina. We love putting up billboards in the
Yes.
locations where these crimes occur. So now we have digital boards, right? So you can
Yeah.
actually give us one of those rotations for free, please.
Thank you.
Give us one of those, rotations so that when something occurs, we can immediately get that face up. If we have the victim's face, but if we have a perpetrator or whatever that we're
Yeah.
looking for. And billboards, people are looking up constantly. They're a great opportunity. I'm not a billboard salesman, but I just know
They
that
work.
They work.
They honestly do. I mean, because when you're
That's right.
driving, I drive from Metairie to Gretna
Yeah.
and back
Oh,
every
yeah,
day.
every day. Oh, Lord.
Ooh, I know.
It gets
I
tired
drive
looking
right
at the
by
car
your
in front of
office
you.
every day. Hey,
Like,
Darlene,
hey,
right, as I'm going
Right.
13 more miles.
Right.
But, so y'all don't have anything right now on billboards.
No, so if anybody
So
wants
you
to reach
need
out
a-
to us, yeah,
Okay, all right.
we'd love to have them.
I'll see what I can do. I can't promise, but
appreciate
I'll
you.
see what I can do. Well, so what we need to do as a community is we need to be more mindful,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to things, more involved. And like I said, it's easiest for people to say, oh, the cops don't do this, or they, how we do.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's going to take everybody working together. Law enforcement, CrimeStoppers, us, families,
Yep.
friends,
Yes.
everybody getting the word out there on these cases, because I know some of the cases have been on the books for a while.
Absolutely,
And, you just need that one.
right. The one thing, we all, when things happen to us. I mean, I was a victim of identity theft last week. I'm angry.
You should be.
Why would you steal my social security number? I work hard for my money.
Right.
So I get it. I mean, I'm still angry, but I also know I'm one victim of probably thousands a day this is happening to. So, I mean, I think, having to understand when you become your family member or you become a victim, looking at it through a different lens if you can, not just of the anger and the grief, because that doesn't help us to work cooperatively where we need to work cooperatively with law enforcement. So I guess that's my words of wisdom, because we deal with people in their worst of the worst, in their
Right.
situations that they're,
Right.
and we see that sometimes they can get in their own way. We also know that people in the community give them information. 100%. I know they're being told in many of these cases, I know who did it, so-and-so. And those people in that community are still afraid to come forward and tell CrimeStoppers or law enforcement.
I was actually about to say
Yeah.
that. Somebody knows something.
They do.
In every single one
Absolutely.
of these crimes, somebody knows something, whether it's one person or a group of people,
Right.
someone knows something.
They do. And, for the family members who are getting that information, always send it in to us. I mean, we're going to take it. We're not going to, every piece of information we get, we pass it along. We never just, we're not going to do that. But those people, the family members need to be the advocates to tell them it's safe to use CrimeStoppers. So that's a big thing that they can do for us. And then the neighborhoods. I mean, again, if you're part of somebody in a neighborhood where you're trying to be helpful to a group that's been involved and has been victimized, again, I'm telling you, it's a safe process. We're not going to ever identify you. That's not what we're about. So they need to use it just to be able to stop that, whatever it is that's going on. And particularly property crimes right now are going up again.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got camera footage, you've got things on your ring bell, different doorbell cameras, whatever. Send it in. You can upload that and send it into CrimeStoppers. It's incredibly important that law enforcement gets that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Darlene, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I know you're busy and taking time from your family, your new grandbaby, and
Yay.
yeah. So thank you for that. I appreciate y'all partnering with us. Our show, we're going to get as much as we can out there for y'all, and feature different cases, and you never know. But I just appreciate it, and hopefully you'll come and join us again. And
Absolutely.
Cody, I thank you for being my co-host tonight.
Sure.
Thank you to Brandon and Lorelai for all that you do, directing and
thumbs
producing,
up.
and y'all did great. So, Quest, my new show, I say it's a journey into the true crime and paranormal, and definitely tonight we have journeyed into true crime. So thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.